Hello, welcome to VR Roundtable, episode 98. My name is Gary, and I'm joined with Chris, Steve, and Anthony. So again, a full roster this week, as expected, because we've had a pretty big week in terms of VR with OC5. So we'll get into all that stuff a little bit later. Thanks to everyone joining us in chat. I can see all the usual names and a few new ones, actually, I think, in there as well. So feel free to make any comments you want during the show, and we'll try to answer any questions or, chime in with any opinions as well. That would be great. But anyway, let's go over and just have a quick catch up with everybody on the show. So, Chris, how are you this week?
I'm good. I'm finally coming at you live from Montreal, Canada. So in a new place again, but this is where I'm actually living this semester.
Awesome. Anthony, how are you this week?
I'm very good. It's been a very busy week. A lot of stuff is going on.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. Steve, you've been traveling this past week, but I know you've put in the effort and got through a few games as well. What can you tell us?
Everything's going good. Pleased to announce that the country let me back in. They didn't stop me at the Customs and Border Patrol, so they must deem me worthy. I'm back home.
Good stuff. Okay, well, we've got quite a busy show this week, so we want to get into it pretty quickly. We've got a few games to discuss later, but first of all, obviously, we want to get into OC5, which is probably the biggest news that's been happening this past week. So the first news story we've got down based on OC5 is the Oculus Quest. This is more or less sort of kind of like an expected piece of news that came out of it. We knew that Santa Cruz was going to be probably featured pretty heavily in OC5, and that came about to be true. So we've got a name for Santa Cruz now. It's Oculus Quest. It's going to be released in spring 2019 for $399. Before I move on to anything else, I want to very quickly go around you guys and just see what you think of that price, because I don't think any of us expected it to be that cheap. When we predicted this price a few weeks ago, none of us sort of predicted $399. It was all sort of $499, $599. Anthony, I'll go over to you first on this, because it was a pretty big shock, but it was also a welcome one. What do you think?
Yeah, when I was watching the thing live, and when I saw the $399 and all of that, I was like, whoa, wow, $399, this is amazing. And then for a while there, I was like, oh my God, they must really be subsidizing the heck out of this thing. They are super serious. Like, they really want this thing to become the next big deal. And then, of course, later we found out the processor that's in there, but we'll go ahead and wait on that. But we know why the price is $399 now, but, it's one of those things.
Yeah, it does make sense. So just to touch on that point, so the processor in the Oculus Quest is going to be a Snapdragon 835. That's now been confirmed. I think a few of us had some hopes that it might be the 845 and, give us that extra little bit of horsepower and give it alongside, because the 835 is an older chip, and it's sort of in the last generation of smartphones, really, the Android smartphones. And the 845 is in the latest generation of smartphones. But having said that, we all know how well the Oculus Go performs with Snapdragon 821 through optimization, all of these things. And we can get into some stuff a little bit later on about some of the impressions that have come out of OC5 based on this Snapdragon and the experiences that have come out of that as well. But Chris, just going back to the price, obviously, fantastic. What do you think?
Yes, I was watching it live in the Oculus Go in Oculus venues, which is pretty neat. And we all said, me included, that was going to be like $599, something like that. So when it was $399, I was like, this, I can recommend this to everybody. Like, this is amazing, because even my friends who got the Go's, who the computers aren't powerful enough to get a Rift or anything like that. Like, man, I maybe should have had them wait off, but no one thought it was going to be this low. I don't think. Like, everyone predicted 600 or 500 or something like that, and then it would come down to $399 maybe eventually. It's crazy to me that it's the same price as Rift. I was really expecting a Rift price drop. I was a little sad when Rift is just the same price, but it's really good. I'm glad they're prioritizing price over the specs in this case.
I agree, actually. Yeah. Just with that last little point there, I do agree that I think they've made the right decision overall. Steve, on the price, the processor, what do you think overall, just based on that initial announcement that Mark Zuckerberg made with this device?
Well, the price is great, right? That's really good. That's the big thing, right? If we think about what a lot of the VR naysayers say when VR is brought up at a place like NeoGAF or just in the general sort of gaming or not even just the gaming, but the tech community, price is one of the big things referred to, as well as the having to have an expensive PC. So I think Oculus is listening to that feedback, and they're saying, okay, we want to do something about that. And I think the Quest does really well at kind of nipping at both of those buds. I'll have more to say on the headset itself throughout this episode, but just in general reactions, price, and what it means for the public at large, I think they've done well.
Yeah, the just a few comments that are coming in. So Craig Strachan said, I held off buying the Go as the Quest was coming. And that sort of, at this point, it probably makes sense. We'll probably dive into that kind of stuff a little bit later on as well. And then Tech Azura said, if it was the 845, we probably wouldn't get the Quest until like 2020. Because of that price point, if you want the 845, you're going to, I suppose, you're going to be paying a lot more money for that at the moment. And that all makes sense. But just to go through these specs a little bit more. So resolution on the Oculus Quest is 1600 by 1440 per eye, which is a little bit higher than the Oculus Go, which is 1280 by 1440 per eye. And they said, so Mark Zuckerberg said they are, and this was actually quite an interesting point during the presentation where he first announced this product, and he said it would be Rift quality titles, and there was sort of a noticeable silence amongst the audience because nobody really expects this device to really replicate Rift quality titles in terms of graphical fidelity. But I think what they're talking about there is they are going to do, as a few of us mentioned a few weeks ago, probably port over some of the Rift titles over to the Oculus Quest and sort of dumb them down, reduce the fidelity. And in fact, there were some interesting presentations during OC5 where they mentioned how developers can sort of adapt their titles, bake in lighting and all of this kind of stuff to increase frame rate for the Oculus Quest. The other thing is, obviously, this device, it has a inside-out tracking system with 6 degrees of freedom on both the controllers and the headset itself. And they actually mentioned arena scale tracking capability. We can probably talk about the Dead and Buried experience that we saw at OC5, not firsthand, obviously, none of us are there, but, all of these videos that are coming out of it, it look very, very interesting. We could dive into that a little bit more later on. And also, when this device comes out in spring next year, it is going to have 50 launch titles. And some of the titles they mentioned are Robo Recall, Superhot VR, The Climb, and Moss. There's a lot to take in with this. I'm really excited. I think standalone is a great way to introduce VR to the masses. Anthony, let me go back to you. So all of that stuff that I've previously mentioned just then, have you got any thoughts on that? And what is your overall impression of this device based on the whole sort of everything we learned throughout OC5?
Yeah, well, it's funny about the Oculus Go thing, like people that just bought an Oculus Go, because right before I went to Hawaii, like a week and a half before I left to Hawaii, I bought an Oculus Go. And so I was kind of late to the Oculus Go party compared to a lot of you guys, right? So I just bought an Oculus Go, and now all of a sudden it seems like it's kind of being kicked to the curb to a slight degree. And because in a lot of their interviews, they're saying that the Oculus Quest is 80% gaming, 20% media. And that the Oculus Go is kind of opposite, 80% media, 20% gaming. So when I hear them say that, I kind of worry a little bit that they're not, because Gary, one of the things you asked for is you were hoping that Oculus would get a legit development team to make like a really high-end Go game, And I don't know that we're going to see that now with them concentrating on this other product. But as far as the Quest is concerned, This is exactly what Facebook wants. This is hugely important for them, because one of the things that I've stressed repeatedly is I think they want to get rid of the PC. They want to get rid of Windows, everything that comes along with a gaming PC and all the requirements that you have with a gaming PC, upgrading Windows. The fact that Steam is a mere click away, they want to get away from all of that. What they got with this Oculus Quest, this is a video game system, really. I mean, this is an all-in-one video game system. They have a page on Amazon, at least on the USA Amazon temporarily, and it said all-in-one. They're not calling it a standalone. They're calling it all-in-one. And this is their gaming platform. This is a console, really. It's a closed ecosystem. You buy an Oculus Quest, you have everything that you need. There's nothing external that you need, nothing you need to buy, nothing you need to upgrade. It is always there, and they lock you into that ecosystem, and that's really what they want to do. I can't wait. I want to get one of these things right now. Like, spring 2019 cannot come fast enough as far as I'm concerned. However, there is a part of me, though, that really is worried about that 835 Snapdragon, primarily from the fact that we also found out that the Insight tracking, their new tracking system, which has those 4 cameras on the corner, the 835 is running that as well. I kind of was hoping maybe they would have a little co-processor in there that would be 100% dedicated to Insight, and that would free up the 835 just 100% for gaming. And that's not exactly the case. They're going to try to figure it out. We've seen the dead and buried screenshots where it shows a piano with 1 texture and a piano with 5 textures, and it looks pretty much the same. And I've made the argument that once you get into an experience and you're playing it for about 3 or 4 minutes, you're not going to notice all that stuff. You're going to buy into the experience. You're going to be enjoying the experience, the freedom of wireless. It's going to be awesome. But there is a side of me that kind of, like, you see some of these dead and buried video screens that on different videos where they're showing dead and buried, and you see how PlayStation 2-ish the graphics kind of look on some of these second screens, and it's a little bit worrying. But I don't know. We're just going to have to wait, I guess. But I'm hyped on it.
I'm not worried about that, actually. I think that is to be, I mean, obviously you expect it as well, Anthony, and I expect it. I think that's a good way to approach this device, and just think of it as a much lower fidelity thing. One thing I want to get into after we've gone round everybody and just seen their overall impressions of this is I want to get into some of the discussion about when this live stream was going on and there was chat taking place as well. There was so much negativity that was going on in that, and it was sort of disheartening, really. I really wish that wasn't taking place in the way it was, but I'll get into that in a second. Chris, so other than the price, what do you think of the Oculus Quest as a device? Is it powerful enough, and are you looking forward to, will you be picking one of these things up?
Oh yeah, we try to pick one of these up day one, but I think other than the price, like you, I'm not really worried about the processor, just because I've had the Go for so long, and the Go looks great. They have all these kind of workarounds to make text look really sharp on it, and then they also some games I've played, like Drop Dead, are actually pretty decent graphically. Obviously, they're all cartoony, but they're still kind of immersive for being on the Oculus Go, and I'm knowing this is going to be like a whole step up above what the Go can do. So already I feel like it's an upgrade versus that. I'm never going to compare it to like the Rift quality. We're not going to get Lone Echo 2 or Lone Echo on the Go or anything like that. But things like Beat Saber, a lot of people play Beat Saber. I feel like, if that got ported over, that'd be a killer app. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what this Robo Recall thing is, because like if Robo Recall looks decent, like people are going to love that. But I mean, to your point, there's the PC gamer audience is like, come on, the Rift has the lowest resolution display now, and all these graphics are pretty bad compared to what a PC can do. I think they kind of screwed themselves when they said Rift quality titles, because they really just mean that there's 6 degrees of freedom hand controllers and like there's real presence. I think that's what they meant, but I think a lot of people took that as them saying like, oh, this is going to have really good graphics, which it probably won't, but honestly, people won't really care, I don't think, once you have the device.
I don't either, and I think you're right actually in terms of that. A lot of people were saying in the chat, Rift quality titles question mark exclamation mark. Of course, it won't have that, and none of us are really expecting that. And like you say, it's pointing towards 6 degrees of freedom, much lower, sort of dumbed down graphics, I suppose. Steve,
Hey, hold on one second. I just want to. I'm thinking of something, and before I forget about it, I just want to go ahead and present it real quick. One thing that was interesting is in the John Carmack talk, because everybody, like a lot of people in chat are saying it's basically Xbox 360 level, PlayStation 3 level. And John Carmack, when he was doing his talk, one of the things that he was saying is back in those days, they were making a 1280 by 720 game at 30 frames, right? And he's saying now what they want them to do is do 1200 by 1200 at 72 frames, which I thought that was kind of interesting because 1200 by 1200 isn't the actual resolution.
Yeah, that was interesting. Just on that point, what they do apparently, because I don't know if you listened to the Tested podcast, Anthony, this past week, but they had the developer of Big Screen on there, and they said that what they're doing is they have 1280 by 1280, which is a square resolution that is what they are supposed to render at in order to get this thing into the Oculus Quest. And then they have options beyond that, so they can super sample beyond that if they choose to do so, if they have the performance overhead in order to do it. But yeah, so it's an interesting point because there's all of these things. There's so many things that are going on with this Quest in terms of developer options. 72 hertz, it seems ridiculous because what you were saying there, Anthony, it's like it's a 360, an Xbox 360 potentially is what Carmack was saying in some ways, but they need to do this 1280 by 1280 twice. They need to render 72 hertz this resolution.
Yeah. Well, when you think about like Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, one of the things I thought of was, well, I played Red Dead Redemption back then. I played Dead Space back then. I played Fallout 3 back then. And if you're telling me that I could be in a VR world that looks like Red Dead Redemption, even back in those days, and looks like Fallout 3 back in those days and Dead Space, I'm all in. But he was saying, it's going to be dumbed down from that. Yeah, so we got to understand,
Yeah, it's not going to be that. Steve, so let's get your overall impression. So regardless of the price, what do you think about this product?
I think, I'm looking at it from Facebook's interest, from their business interest, right? This is a product that's going to help them get VR to consumers. To, I believe it was Anthony's point earlier, it's a standalone device. It's going to get them away from Windows. It's going to get them away from Steam, and it is a console. This is deviating from VR as we know it today, not counting the Go, which also deviated. This is a standalone console. It is a taller walled garden that everyone doesn't like with Oculus's model, and it's going to help them get to the people that may not. They're obviously they need to be gamers of some capacity, but they're getting more to the casual Bob here. They're not necessarily looking for Rift to go after the everyday person. So I think this helps them achieve that. I think they want people that use Instagram. They want people that use their connected social platforms to be interested in VR. And this may be a good way to do it. It's still gaming centric. So at the end of the day, they're still showing touch controllers. They're still marketing this as a gaming thing. But I feel like it's more of a Trojan horse than the Rift itself ever was. And that's okay. I do not fault them in any capacity for taking this stance. I always look back though at me and my interest. A better way of saying it is the popularity of mobile gaming, right? Like whether it be Android, iOS, like mobile gaming is huge. There are, this maybe speak more to Chris's generation, but there are millions and millions of people playing these games on their tablets and such. And that may be more popular now. I don't know. I haven't looked up any numbers, but that may be more popular than console and PC gaming at this point. And I know that's where a lot of developers. So this Quest is almost like taking a tablet or a smartphone approach to VR gaming. And I know that's also to a degree what the Go was doing. And those of us that play on consoles and that are playing games on PC and they want to play the Hellblades and the Fallout 4s, they're not going to always love everything that the Quest does, I think. But for those that are big VR fans that want the ability to take it and have the 6 degrees of freedom, I'm sorry, 6 DOF, because that's how we say DOF now. We all say DOF. But they take the 6 DOF and be able to go anywhere with it. I think it's good, but I think for me, it's a little bit of an iffy middle ground. So I'll be very interested to see how it truly plays out. Everyone's excited for it right now. It's amazing. It's awesome. But once we've had them for 6 months, I'll be curious if people, keep reaching for it or start gravitating towards their Rifts or so for those at least that will have, both portable and, tethered VR.
Yeah. I think Oculus have put themselves in quite a difficult position in terms of where they positioned themselves originally, because the Oculus Rift is a PC peripheral, for want of a better word. That is where it was positioned, and it was always going to be an add-on for PC. You needed a PC to run it. There was never really any inclination for them to go to that for many, many years, from when the Oculus Rift was first announced up until, we've got to the Oculus Go and this kind of stuff where they've got standalone products. And I think that's the difficulty. Some of the comments that you see on this stream when they were announcing the Oculus Quest were all about, we don't care. I don't want a standalone. All I want is the next generation. I want wider field of view. I want high resolution and this kind of stuff. And I can understand that. And a lot of people that watch this show are going to understand that. We are a show that is aimed really at enthusiasts and people that want their highest definition VR. Now, do I disagree with what Facebook and Oculus are doing at the moment? Not really. I think they, as a company, they are going about this in the right way. I think they need to do standalone. I think standalone as a company just makes sense. Is it great for us enthusiasts? Not really. I'd love, a wider field of view, a better spec HMD, such as the Pimax, but just to mention the Pimax is an option. You don't need to buy all of these devices. You don't need to buy an Oculus Quest or anything like that. So I'm in two minds about it in some ways, because I am an enthusiast. I want the highest specification, and yet at the same time, I think this is the correct thing for Oculus to do, where they are positioning themselves as a mainstream company. They want to get VR into the masses, no matter what it takes. And that makes sense. I mean, honestly, what kind of situation would it be where PS4, Sony or Microsoft were constantly upgrading their consoles every 2 years? Because they could do that. There's no reason why they wouldn't do that, except in the long term, it wouldn't make sense for them. They need to make profit on these devices, so they have generally sort of a 5 to 7 year lifespan of these devices. They don't want people to hold off buying this 3 years in thinking the next one is around the corner. They want people to think this is the time to buy this device and continue to buying it. I think that's where Oculus are sort of positioning themselves. They need to set a precedent where these devices, the next Rift is not going to come out every year, 2 years, 3 years. It's going to come out every 4 years, and that's a way to maximize profits and also get to the mainstream as well. Has anybody got any other thoughts on this?
Hey, you know what? I got an interesting thought. I don't know that anybody's really brought this up too much, but with this being very much like a video game console, it's this all-in-one package. You could go to Best Buy, you buy this thing. It's an all-in-one. Like, isn't this treading on Sony's territory? Like, if I'm Sony, like, aren't you? Like, I think Sony should be highly concerned about this, because that's their market. That's their game. Their game is you buy something, it's at well, not Toys R Us. It doesn't exist anymore, but you go to Best Buy or whatever, you Target, Walmart, you buy a box, you bring it home, you open it up. It's got everything. You don't need a PC. It's an enclosed thing. And that's Sony's game, although they're an add-on right now. But if I'm Sony, I'm looking at this Quest like, oh man, these guys are treading in my waters.
That's a good point, because Sony could just do the same thing. Sony has all the chops in-house to make a direct Quest competitor. Like, they could do the optics. They obviously, you know, through their experience with the Vita and such. And I didn't think of it in that light. And yeah, I think that's, you know, PSVR 2 could head somewhat in that direction.
Yeah, it is a good point. I agree, because this device, I mean, is Steve said earlier, it is really a console, and I think that's where they're positioning themselves. That's where the future of this thing is going to be. That's not to say they're not going to continue working on CV2. And let's just get into this, Chris. So we've had this year. So this has been the year of Oculus Quest. A lot of people are hoping for some kind of CV2 announcement, or at least some kind of update. We really got very little CV2, or even like the half dome kind of update. Really, there was a little bit there. But what do you think? Are they still working on this behind the scenes? Will we see some kind of announcement next year?
Yeah, like I remember I tweeted before everything started. I'm like, if a Rift Pro comes out, I'm instant buying it. I don't care how expensive it is. Like, I feel like they still could have done that, but that's not where their head's at anymore. It's not about the us, basically. It's about the general public that doesn't have VR yet. But yeah, no, I think next year is the year of Rift 2 for sure. Like we're gonna see. I hope it has a different name than Rift 2. I don't know, Rift Pro, something like that. But I definitely think we're gonna see that next year.
Yeah, it's gonna be the Oculus Adventure.
Well, actually, we'll get onto that in just 1 second. But Mark Zuckerberg did say, like he outright said, you know, the future of VR is standalone. That's the way. I mean, I'm pretty much. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but I'm almost certain that he said that pretty much. The future of VR is standalone, and it really is for the mainstream. Obviously, for enthusiasts and people who want the highest possible fidelity, then it's not the future of that in that sense. But just on that point, Chris. So let's get into the name. So Oculus Quest. I'll go first. I really don't like it. I don't like it, and people do. Some of the podcasts that I've listened to this past week, they've said that they do like it. I think it makes sense. I don't think it really sort of communicates what the Oculus Quest is really all about, for a start. And it doesn't roll off the tongue. There's too many k sounds, maybe. I don't know. Chris, go ahead. What do you think?
I don't know. I liked it a lot. I don't know why, if it's just like, it feels a little Ready Player One-ish. It feels a little like, ooh, I'm going to go on quests with my friends. I don't know. I like it. I think for my generation, it might sound pretty neat, because I never hear the word quest anymore, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like a novel thing. I don't know. You guys all hate it, I know. But
no, that's a good point. That's a good point, though. Maybe it is a generational thing. Maybe.
Yeah, I always think of that crappy Nissan minivan. I think it was a Nissan Quest. You know, like,
I've never heard of that.
Anthony,
the name sucks.
Yeah, no, Steve stole my thunder right there. It sounds like a minivan, but you know what? It's a single syllable. Quest, Rift, Go. You know, it has to be like that, right? And the other thing is too, is when you think about names, like let's go back to the history of video games and let's think about names. The Panasonic 3DO. You know, what kind of name is that? Or like, I remember when it was Dreamcast, Sega Dream. I was like, Dreamcast, really? Nintendo Wii. Like, remember when it was Nintendo Wii? Everybody heard that. You get used to these names. It like in a month from now, it'll seem as normal as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, there's no way they were going to top Go. Go is a perfect name for that device. I still think they could have maybe went with Oculus Free. Or something that kind of kept it in that vein. I still think Quest sucks, but I do agree that ultimately it's going to get normalized for us, and we'll be abbreviating it OQ, and that'll be it. You know.
No, they could have called it the Go Pro. Oh no, I guess not.
Okay, so let's move. Well, has anybody got anything else they want to quickly mention on the Oculus Quest before we move on to the next story?
I was just gonna say maybe we could talk about the arena scale a little bit more. I don't know if that's
that or the that and the insight tracking.
Yeah. So here's what makes it interesting for us VR enthusiasts, I feel like, because even though we have rifts, we can't. First of all, we can't take them anywhere. Second of all, we can't just map out giant areas without having to set up cameras anywhere. Like, this is a big innovation in that way. Even, you know, for us Rift users, I think that's why I'm excited about it. Maybe why you guys are excited about it, because I can just go out into the hallway of this weird hotel building type thing I live in, and I can just map the whole thing out and be like running down the hallway or something and playing a game. Obviously, those games aren't really going to exist for a while, or they won't exist unless, you know, you have some hacks or tweaks or something like that. But just the idea that it's possible to, like, there's a giant food court in the basement of this building. I'm like, if I had a Quest right now, I'd go map that out when it's closed and like play Dead and Buried Arena or something with my friends. Like, if they focus more on arena scale, and like, that would make me excited. So that's kind of the technology that's making me excited with this. And like, I'm assuming it's going to flow into the next gen Rift, and then we don't have cameras anymore and everything. But for now, this is kind of the high end in terms of like a inside out tracking solution, I think. So I'm really excited for that, probably more than anything.
It would appear that they've done inside out tracking better than Microsoft did with their spec MR platform. I mean, I don't know. I probably shouldn't speak so soon on that, but just merely looking at the 4 cameras and some of the detail they went into, it just appears on surface that it could be a better tracking solution. I still think, well, Gary, you were going to say something. Go ahead. I thought you were chiming in.
Yeah, no. I forgot what I was going to say anyway.
So did I. That's why I was throwing it back to you.
Okay. Well,
I got stuff. I got plenty of negative things I could say about. Like, I'm super positive on the Quest in general, but I do believe there were some missed opportunities. I'm wondering if you guys kind of like, were there certain things, like Chris, were there certain things you were hoping for the Quest would have, and it doesn't have it, and you're slightly disappointed? You're probably going to have to wait till Quest 2 for it. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this will ever happen, but what bugs me the most is, so this is basically a better HMD in every way than the Rift. It has better screens, better optics, has a USB-C connection, but it doesn't do display. So I can't plug this into my PC and make it like a Rift 2. Why couldn't they do that? They easily could. They just don't want to fragment themselves with the Rifts and everything. But I think these products should be one. They should, the Santa Cruz, or I keep calling it Santa Cruz, the Quest should be the Rift 2, and they should merge those together, and you can plug it into a PC when you have a PC. When you don't, you should be able to take it on the go.
You're dead on. I said that months ago, that's what I wanted this device to do. And I still remain watching the keynote in the very beginning with Zuckerberg out there, and they created 3 tiers of sorts, like 3 segments. And there's a little bit of overlap, in my opinion. There's a little bit of confusion between what they're calling the portable and the standalone. And it's because they have the Go out on the market, they can't just pretend it doesn't exist. And I know we have more on how Go is represented in OC5 in general, but there is overlap, and it's not. There's a little bit of mixed messaging, and I know some consumers out there will be confused. I know Oculus subreddit, there'll be someone coming in and questioning, can they plug their Quest up to their PC or whatever. But I would have liked to see the platforms merge like that. And if anything, one of the things Zuckerberg said was, you need 10 million users on a platform before the platform really takes off and it starts becoming feasible for devs to develop for it. And then I think they said they wanted to get to 100 million VR users, and they showed the progress of 1%. Well, if they're separating these ecosystems, like right now, the Rift and the Go ecosystem is pretty separate. Games that you buy don't, of shared titles, games like Ken and Blaze Rush and so forth, aren't on both if you buy one or the other. And some developers will give you the other version for free if you buy the game, but you have to go through this method of emailing them or contacting them. It's not done in the platform itself. And I almost wonder, is Quest going to be a third? Am I going to buy Ken for the third time? Or not that I probably wouldn't buy Ken for the Quest, but you get my point. Like, is it going to be further separated? So how does this help them achieve their goal of 10 million users on a platform if all they've done is create 3 separate platforms?
I think you've got a very good point there, and we've spoken behind the scenes about how if we were to pick up a Oculus Quest, really, would we keep the Go? I don't see myself keeping the Go if I've got an Oculus Quest. But I think the position is they need to look at this as well from another point of view, where they have these devices. They've got one for $200, one for $400. Then they've got another one which is $400, but also requires a high-end PC in order to run. If you're a mainstream consumer, and again, I think Facebook, Oculus are aiming this all at mainstream consumers, the number of options makes sense. For us, it doesn't make sense because we want all of these devices, but it doesn't make sense to have all the devices. We don't want a Go and a Quest because they're replicating a lot of experiences themselves. But for a mainstream consumer who is going to get one of these things, they need to have an option available to them. So if they want to purchase something for $200, there is an option there. So I think in some ways it makes sense. At the same time, I do agree with you, Steve. I think the fact that there's so much crossover between these devices is probably not going to bode well for them as these devices go from generation to generation. I think there's going to be a problem there. At the moment, I don't see too much of a problem with it necessarily, but yeah.
Can I talk about a couple of the downsides, I think, or should we wait for later on that? Okay, so
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, for me, one of the things I'm disappointed in is having my Go and walking around my house and like looking out the corner way down here to like see where I'm walking and stuff. I want pass-through camera capability. Now, wait a minute. I know everybody in chat or everybody out there is going to be, oh, it has pass-through camera. We saw the mixed reality TV. You saw the AHA video with the keyboard and all that. But what I've heard, Sean Liu had that interview with the Tested guys, and he kept saying over and over again, well, that's part of our innovation thing. Like that's like off in the distance. So the Quest is going to come out, and then maybe 2 years later we get the pass-through camera, or 2 years later we get a little bit of mixed reality. 2 years later we get hand tracking. And I wanted it to be day and date. If I could make a suggestion to Oculus, I mean, it's way too late now, but put two cameras right there on the front, baby. Stereoscopic pass-through, full AR, MR, but they would need a co-processor, to handle that as well. And I mean, it would bump that price up. But I am a little bit disappointed. No eye tracking. I don't know. What do you guys think about some of those issues?
Just sorry, I don't want to hog the conversation, but just on that point, because this is one point I did want to hit on the mixed reality stuff, because what they were discussing there, it's not pass through at all. It's using the Insight sort of tracking system in order to just get the hard edges, the right angles of the way it's managing to track this device anyway, and simply covering them in kind of like a just simple lines, really, so you can see it. It's not really pass through, but it works in a similar way to pass through, and that's the thing. I think that actually was very, very interesting. I'd love to see how they develop with that. But on your point, Anthony, if they were to put two cameras in the front and had some kind of pass through, there would be a lot of overhead in terms of like the latency just to have that kind of camera pass through directly, and also you'd be using battery power, CPU power, and all this kind of stuff. Maybe I'm really interested to see where they go with this, but I think as a demo, I think it made sense to show it what it's capable of. Yeah,
you also have a little bit of a, for lack of not knowing the correct term, a geometry issue with lenses that are offset, or that 3-4 inches, however, to the front of the thing. Like, it's not going to feel, if you were looking through pass through, full color, full resolution, all that, it doesn't necessarily feel like your eyes. Like, there's a lot to do to make true pass through feel the same way I imagine it feels in a Magic Leap or in a HoloLens, where there is no pass through. You're actually seeing the room or the area that you're in. So I think it's a little more involved than putting a couple cameras into the front of the headset. But that still, I think they could have maybe done it to some degree. I think your point stands, Anthony. But I think to get true like quality AR with a VR headset, it's a little deeper than that, and I'm not sure they have the full processing power and everything all in this Quest.
Yeah, I feel like Oculus has been kind of lacking in these platform features that they really should have, and that it would make the experience so much better. Like, I know in the Go, I can hop into a VR room. We can all go into an app together. But on the Quest, I want to be able to buy 2 of these, or have my friend come over with a Quest. I want to look over there and I can see him in the real world. Like, these are technologies that they should have made available for day one. They shouldn't be like, these are years out or potentially on a future product, because we know that the product can be capable of these things. So, I mean, that's kind of the caveat of showing arena scale and stuff. We're never going to see this unless there's like, we develop our own arena scale game and our own arena scale servers and stuff. Like, it's not going to ever get released. And, same with the pass through.
Yeah, you raise a good point there. They're talking about this arena scale and the dead and buried, and they had the nice exhibit there on the show floor. But I'm not convinced that, when this thing comes out, that me and my son buys Oculus Quest and we're playing Dead and Buried, that we're going to be able to do that. I think that is a service of some sort. That it's there's maybe a middleman piece of hardware that's taking
a server. There was a server. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're able to do some sort of ad hoc device to device connection so that we can see where the other Oculus Quest is that's in our room. But as of now, I won't assume that it's shipping that way, merely based on how they show that Dead and Buried arena. They're showing that the technology's there, but I don't necessarily think it's coming day one and they'll have everything that they need for it. John Bardo, thanks for the super chat. And the same thing, if we look at Oculus for a lot of things that they do really well, there's other things that they seem to struggle with. Like, how long have we been waiting for extended storage support on the Go? How long are we going to continue to wait? Carmack spoke to it in his talk about casting, Sean Liu spoke to about casting with the Oculus Go, but we still don't have it. Like, announcing it there at OC5 and saying it's available in a firmware update today would have been amazing, but it's still not in there. So there are certain things that they seem to either drag their feet on, or they're stumped and they just reprioritize and they don't tackle. So when it comes to this arena scale and headset to headset communication, I'm concerned that if it's not there day one, as you were mentioning, Chris, that is it going to be 6 months later, a year later, if ever? That's just the way I feel about it.
Quest 2 is going to be awesome because Quest 2 is going to have camera pass through, eye tracking. And then one of the things I was complaining about, and I don't know, maybe I'm kind of off on a limb here, but like, I've always, like, if you go camping, right, and you have 2 Nintendo 3DSs, there's no server anywhere, there's no Wi-Fi anywhere, but you can play Mario Kart with the other guy that is on their 3DS. Same thing if you have a PlayStation Vita and you got the FIFA game on PlayStation Vita, the 2 Vitas can communicate with each other with no Wi-Fi router, no PC, nothing. And I thought this was a slightly missed opportunity where, Chris, I know you would like this. Remember that one EA game where those 2 guys are standing back to back and they have their guns? This is a number of years ago back in flat gaming, but wouldn't you like to be in your room and like you and a buddy are you're almost basically playing hover junkers in your room, with 2 quests, no needs for any PC or anything, completely wireless, and you guys could be in the same space and they can kind of communicate with each other and you see his head and his hands, and so you don't bump into him. I don't know.
There's no reason why they couldn't do that, though. I mean, they could have add that in. That's sort of a software level.
How do they do that, though? I'm curious as to how that's done, because if I'm in a headset and this headset is running the game and your headset's running your game, how does it tell you in real time where I am? Could they show a general positioning? Yes. But would it be real time enough? Will it stop you from punching your buddy in the face? Because it's... I don't know. And
that's a good point. Yeah.
I almost wonder if the server that they had on the Dead and Buried arena thing, because you remember seeing people walking around with the tablets that were showing the virtual peak, is the server because of that, because it was running that view and all of that. If it wasn't doing that, could the other players' positioning, if you had less players, could it be done serverless? I don't know. I think it would be nice if they offered more clarity there, because I think a lot of people will really, really want that feature. I know that I'm in as much as I say that it may not be my primary way of VR, I'm in on the Oculus Quest, especially if I can play with my son in that fashion. We go out into the backyard and just, have a blast. Just not sure it's going to do it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just make
God.
sure it's not pitch black, because you need enough light to read a book. So remember about that.
That's true. It's just a sad time because there's all these future technologies, and we're gonna sit here with something that we can probably just play normal games that we've always played, but obviously wireless, which will be nice. But at the same time, we're not gonna be tracking our hole downstairs and running around, which I think is the dream. But then it's not marketed for us. It's for people who don't have Rifts already. So I don't know. I'm hoping somebody will come out with something, even if it's like a third party, not real, like, someone will make some arena scale thing, demo or something just to try, because I want to try this stuff.
Yeah. There's still a lot to be confirmed about this device anyway. So we'll wait on the next few months and see what happens. But I think from what they've shown with it, it's very exciting. That mixed reality demo was pretty impressive to me. I really thought that was a great thing to show the future of where VR is going, even if it's not specifically for this device. Okay, so let's move on a little bit now. The other news that came out of OC5 is a new Rift platform has now been released. I believe it's been rolling out now. Not too much to report on this, but apparently now you can, I've not tried this, but you can invite friends over to Oculus Home and stream titles on the TV and things like that. So it's kind of like going into the metaverse and that kind of stuff. It's what we all want from this. And also expressive avatars. So they've upgraded models on avatars, removed the glasses, so you can now see the eyes, and they're sunk this. Steve, I'll go to you first.
I think it's expected. Like, we kind of knew when they did Oculus Home that eventually that's what it was going to be. It was going to be H's basement, an attempt at doing something like that. And yeah, I think it's fine. It's really not my cup of tea. I'm not going to decorate my home and spend hours, putting stuff out on the shelves and stuff. Like, I'll do it in my real house. Like, I try to get out of doing it. I don't want to do it in virtual land either. But imagine if I was younger and I had a group of friends that I was always playing VR with. Like, this would be a really cool feature. And we know Apple last year with the iPhone X, iPhone 10, whatever it's called, like, they did these emotive emojis or whatever they called them. And Oculus is doing the same thing here. It's nice. Like, I'm not mad at it. Don't hate it. Just don't really care.
Okay. Anthony, what did you think about these updates to the Rift platform?
It's all good, right? But one of the worries I had is the new Rift that people were on, like the new mode of Rift that was introduced a while back, right? Yeah, Dash. I actually opted out of that for the longest time because I kept having these sound problems where in Dash it would have this background noise, it'd have that noise going on in the background, and I would start up a game and it would still have that noise. The noise would never leave, and it drove me crazy. I opted out of Dash, and then I got rid of that. Now, when this update came through, it automatically brought me back to Dash, and the noise is gone, so I'm happy now. But as far as like the avatars and stuff, I went into Oculus Venues one night hoping to see the original keynote with Zuckerberg and all that in 3D later after the fact, right? And I went into Venues and there was like 40 people that were in this auditorium, and you saw their little heads and you saw their hands and it had their names and people were talking and stuff. Didn't get to see the replay of the keynote. I don't know why they didn't just keep running it over and over again. They just had a countdown timer and that was it. But it's interesting to see other people's faces and hear them talking. But what was super freaking cool is this is like super off into the future, but remember when they showed like super future avatars where it's using the machine learning and it basically creates another version of you? Like, that is going to be next level, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. Chris, what did you think of the platform? I guess, because you play a lot of VR games with your friends. I think, especially on the go recently,
Yeah.
you've been playing some stuff. What do you think of this update?
It's nice. It's one of those things, excuse me, where it's like this could have been out like a year and a half ago or a year ago, and I'd been way more happy. The longer it takes them to do some of this stuff is kind of ridiculous. But I'm glad they're at least, they're working towards it. This, especially with the avatars. I know that's an iterative process, but the kind of inviting your friends into your home and streaming stuff, I feel like that could have been there a long time ago. There's just a lot of this stuff that I'm like, must get hung up or something somewhere. There's some place where they have all these features, then they just get stuck, like the casting feature. It's just been stuck there for months. So they need to figure that out and start releasing stuff quicker, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we first heard about sort of Rift Core 2.0 and the Dash and Oculus Home originally, it was all expected that you would be able to invite your friends in a lot sooner than it's actually turned out to be. And just talking about missing features, Oculus Go, Minecraft. Why isn't Minecraft on the Oculus Go yet? I don't understand that. There's got to be some reason behind it, because I don't see any reason technically why it can't happen.
Yeah. I sideloaded it on mine.
I did too. It works fine. It works great.
Hey, they said YouTube is coming to Go. When's that going to happen? YouTube?
I don't know.
Later, soon or something.
Coming. So, like, one of the things, here's how I use Dash. I use Dash to deal with my audio without taking the headset off. If it's early in the morning and I forgot to turn off the audio mirroring and I want to wake everybody up, I use Dash. I want to, for any developer that ever sees this, give the option for your game to not run full screen windowless on the mirror. Because when that happens and I use Dash, I can't get into my computer to adjust the Windows sound settings. I can't see my taskbar. I can't see anything. It's annoying as hell. Go to window mode, or something. Like, it's something that I fight every day almost, it seems like, because I'm always doing something to either turn the audio on, turn it off, whatever. And it's just kind of stupid and pointless to have a mirror that's forced to be full screen windowless. So there's my take on an Anthony rant.
Just on the Minecraft thing, I think so in the comments, JJ Mark said it's Microsoft, FX Node said it's all licensing, I am sure, and that makes sense. It's got to be licensing that's preventing them from bringing that over to the Go. But yeah, I'd love to see it on there. Okay, so Lone Echo 2, let's move on to the next thing. This is very, very welcome from my point of view. I absolutely loved Lone Echo, the original game. And, even the multiplayer, Echo VR, where you've got the Echo Combat and what's the other game called? Why am I blanking on that? What's the other
Echo
game
Arena?
Called? Echo Arena, yeah, Echo Arena and Echo Combat. Both fantastic games in their own right, but the single player game is the thing that first attracted me to it. And now they have announced Lone Echo 2, a full sequel to the original game. Can't be more excited about this. Really looking forward to this. Anthony, I'll go over to you first. I know you played through Lone Echo, the original game. What do you think of this?
Yeah,
Did you complete it?
No, I'm like 85% of the way through the original Lone Echo game. But this is awesome, of course, but I remember when they talked about Lone Echo, they said there was going to be some additional single player stuff. This was a long time ago, right? We heard about, we knew they were going to make this like multiplayer thing, and then there was going to be like some additional single player stuff. And we kind of thought that it might be almost like a DLC or some kind of like little expansion pack sort of a thing. And then on the Oculus blog, they're calling this Lone Echo 2. But if you look at the trailers, like the trailer never says Lone Echo 2. The other thing is, when you look at these trailers, like it's playing right now, I mean, we notice that her hairstyle is certainly different, but like all the background assets and textures are all from Lone Echo 1. Is this truly a legit sequel is my question. I don't know.
I think on the trailer where it shows Lone Echo, you have the two sort of diagonal bars, and I think that's probably supposed to say Lone Echo 2. I think it's pretty much been confirmed that it is a full sequel, and I hope it is, but yeah. I see your point, because they never said it outright that it is a full sequel or anything. Steve, what do you think of Lone Echo? You played through the original, didn't you?
Fixing my audio. I really enjoyed Lone Echo 2, or Lone Echo. Sorry, I haven't played Lone Echo 2. No developer key this early. The game is good. Like it's with its faults. Like I don't know that I would like Lone Echo that as much this year as I did, last year. When did that game come out? Spring of 2017. It was a interactivity quest, right? Like I like the setting, the story, the narrative, like all that was really good. The controls were really good. Like still to date, I think some of the best VR controls that we've had. But the fact that it was just kind of fly over there, torch open a panel, fly over there, torch open a panel. I hope that they build upon the world, they build upon the setting, keep the really good controls, and then don't have it as much of a repetitive VR control mechanism quest that game was. It was in a way, it was like Job Simulator with a better story and in a better setting. So that's what I hope it avoids. But yeah, I still look forward to it. Like, I'm not going to hate on it that much. But it's just
you're keeping us grounded, Steve. You really are.
Yeah.
Because I can't really disagree with anything you said there.
It's this fantastic bourbon, yeah.
But no, I just hope it's got maybe a little bit of combat, honestly, because now they've got Echo Combat. Maybe they can incorporate some of that into the game. And I agree, maybe they need to up their game slightly in terms of the sequel in what you're doing throughout it. But I think where Lone Echo shone the most, rather than breaking it down to its individual gaming mechanics, which were pretty basic, really, I agree. I think it's the atmosphere and just the setting and the story that elevated it slightly above. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm very excited for this. I've been showing a lot of people Lone Echo 1, just like people are like, I might buy a Rift soon. I'm like, try this. And then they're like, whoa, I am buying a Rift. So there's probably like 2 or 3 people I know up here that are going to get a Rift soon because of that. But it's such a powerful experience, like having these perfect controls, like that. They're just perfect for the touch controllers. I can't express enough how much I love them, but I still haven't finished the game, which I really need to do. But you're right, Steve. It is kind of repetitive, but just for those controls themselves, like they're so nice. So any game that uses them, I'm going to be happy about.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of other things that came out by OC5. So this is to do with Oculus Quest as well. Star Wars Vader Immortal was announced. A pretty big title by all accounts for the Oculus Quest when it's going to be released. So this will be one of the launch titles for it. Looks great. The trailer doesn't give too much away. You see very briefly at the end of the trailer, like somebody holding a lightsaber, which makes sense. That's what you want in this. I don't know where to go with this, because it's not really giving too much away. I'm glad we've got some kind of IP as big as this for the Oculus Quest. Other than that, time will tell what this thing is like. Anthony, what do you think?
Well, it's always nice to launch a new platform with a Star Wars game. Like, supposedly it's going to be, day and date. And there's something about like Star Wars and a new platform makes me think of like some of the old Nintendo systems of years gone by, so that's kind of cool. But when you're seeing this trailer right here, at a certain point, you see Darth Vader, and he's like walking over. There's a guy in the background right here, and there's the little hovering ball thing. And to me, I think those are Oculus Quest graphics. Like, I think that's running on the Oculus Quest. And there's an example of that Snapdragon 835. Looks pretty decent to me. So that's kind of encouraging, but you only see, 5 seconds of it or whatever. But sure, I mean, day and date, supposedly 50 games with the Quest. I'm sure maybe 30 of them might be ports or something, but still, that's pretty freaking cool.
I thought it was 50 experiences.
That makes sense, yeah.
And I'm not trying to harp or be picky or anything, but I think that's pretty big difference than games. If true, I would have to go back and double check something, but I expect a lot of little cool experiences that we'll love, that are awesome, but it's kind of floating that number. They want to say as big of a number as they can. The Vader Immortal thing, I think it's pretty awesome. I do not think It's exclusive to the Quest. I think they say initially launching on Quest or something was the terminology. It hinted at it's coming to all the VR platforms, and that's in ILMX Labs' interest to not have it hinged purely on, a brand new hardware launch. I'm looking forward to it. I think I'd rather play it on my Rift. We'll see. But I think anytime you're doing anything with Star Wars or Marvel, it's a good thing. It's a good thing for your platform. It's a good thing for getting public awareness up. It's in no way can it be bad. And it almost doesn't even matter if the game or the experience is really even good. Now, if it's really good and it's incredible, that helps it all the more. But it can be kind of mediocre, like Marvel Powers United was. But I bet that game probably helped Oculus more than Lone Echo did. It's possible. And it's some kind of same thing here with Vader, Vader Immortal, Star Wars VR. It works well.
Yeah, Paradise Decay mentioned in the chat just now that this game hit the main Star Wars website, the main page on the internet. So it's great news for VR, and that does make sense. That's pretty awesome. If it's on the main Star Wars website, I think it's good exposure over there. Chris. So I don't know if are you a Star Wars fan, or is this?
Yeah, a little bit.
What do you think of this then? So Star Wars Vader Immortal, it's got to be good news for VR anyway. But what do you think of the game?
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping it's a little bit better, or a lot better than the experience I did in Orlando at the Void, because that was by what is it?
ILMX
Lab.
International Light and Magic. Is that what it stands for? Imagination, Light and Magic, something. Yeah.
Industrial.
Yeah. Industrial. I might be that. Some I.
So I don't know, but that experience was kind of basic. Like, it felt like they were just kind of starting to get into VR. Like, it was just very shoot this, walk over here, shoot this, kind of like just like a wave shooter. But obviously it was the Void, so it was cool. So I'm hoping there'll be some cooler stuff going on here. But as you said, Steve, like, it's just going to sell systems if they put this right on the box of all the quests. People will be like, whoa, Star Wars. Just like there was that whole AR experience from Lenovo that was just like 2 Star Wars things. Like, it wasn't even an AR platform. It was just 2 Star Wars experiences, basically. So I think Star Wars can sell basically anything.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we're going, so we've over an hour in already. We've got a few games to discuss and another couple of little topics. So I won't go over to everyone on this, but I just want to mention it. So ASW, asynchronous space warp for the Oculus Rift is going to be updated soon. So the 2.0 version of that is going to be updated with a Rift driver. And it sort of reduces the amount of distortion you get in the Oculus Rift. That's basically the end result of this. Great, always welcome, but there's not too much to say on it. So I just wanted to quickly mention it. And
HTC or Steam still doesn't have one for theirs. Casting a little shade, throwing shade. Come on, Steam, get with it. We need ASW over there.
Yeah, I guess it's down to Valve, isn't it? Valve need to get onto this, and I think there has been a little bit on the subreddits this past week, a few people disgruntled of the fact that they're being left behind in terms of these performance optimizations, which makes sense because this is probably going to be one of the biggest things over the next few years, where we're always hearing about Moore's law is no longer sort of holding true, and we're going to have more optimizations, especially for VR. We need more things like foveated rendering and this kind of stuff. So it would make sense that Valve are still working on this, and I hope they are. The next thing just very quickly before we get onto games, I did want to touch on something that we mentioned very briefly earlier, because we all own Oculus Go's, and there really wasn't very much announced for the Oculus Go at OC5. And again, this sort of backs up something that we said earlier about how maybe the Oculus Go is sort of like a stopgap. I feel like it's a little bit of a stopgap between what they had available to produce then and then the Oculus Quest. They're not positioning it in that way because they want these 2 separate products. But it's just a little bit disheartening that they've not got any more products or good software titles, big software titles released for the Oculus Go. Has anybody got any thoughts they want to quickly mention on that at all?
I'll just say that we're getting the announcement of the Quest now, but it's still at best 5 months out. Realistically, maybe as long as 8 months out if they stick to that spring 2019 window. The Go came out in, I want to say, what was it, May? So you're looking at potentially a full year between the two platforms, or in between the two hardware releases. So I know Quest is fresh in our minds and we're thinking about Quest, but really it's a decent way away. And we got all that time to play with our Go and use our Go, and for them to announce more stuff for the Go, either quietly or make a somewhat of a big deal about it. So I think it does feel that they're very close together, and I totally get why some Go owners would feel like they were somewhat slighted at OC5. But I think the time between now and Quest, although I do expect Oculus will focus mostly on the Quest during this period of time up to release, I think that extends the gap a little bit between the two releases of a hardware, and it's not so close together, and it's not so much of a slap in the face as it initially seems. But I think there is still a subtle slap there.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm concerned about, I mean, I talked about this earlier, just buying a Go, and I did see there was a trailer for a new game called Covert that looks kind of cool. I think it's coming later this year to the Go, so that looks kind of cool. But like, if you listen to John Carmack's entire talk, one of the things that he mentioned was they were working on the Quest way before the Go. And the Go was almost like, oh yeah, let's do this Go thing as well. You know, like, yeah, we could do that. That'll be fun. And they did this Go thing. And I think the way they're looking at the Go, which this is unfortunate, but I think it's the reality, is because of the Gear VR, you're guaranteed games that are going to continue to stream along, that are Gear VR games that could easily be, easily ported to the Go, no problems at all. And that's where you're going to get your games mostly. And the Quest is their focus. The Go is going to be kind of kicked to the curb a little bit. It's just the way it is.
And although I don't think it makes sense if you own a Quest to own a Go necessarily, I do think there will be certain situations where the Go is perhaps better. I think about airplanes, and you're not going to be doing all this in an airplane, elbowing the passenger sitting next to you and stuff. So the Go may be better on an airplane. The Go still may be better for watching video. The Quest is a higher resolution, and it's an OLED, whereas the Go is an LCD with a better subpixel arrangement. So video in certain context situations may be better on the Go. So there may be some very small reasons to own both, although I'd say probably not.
I think I think you're clutching at straws there, Steve, because I think on a plane as well, like, because when I've not used the Go on a plane, I wimped out. I just couldn't do it. I wish I did, but I didn't. But I think by only having the IMU sensors on a plane, and you get the drift, at least with the Oculus Quest, it will sort of have the positional tracking to keep its sort of orientation correct and that kind of stuff. So even in that kind of situation, maybe the Oculus Quest is the one to go for.
Until they tell you to lower the shade and they dim out the lights for everyone's convenience, and you turn your reading light on to give your insight tracking some reference points.
Hey, you know what though, Norm, like that tested video, he was surprised by how heavy the Quest was. Like, he thought it was a bit heavier than he thought it was. So you might be a little bit right there, Steve. And the other thing to remember about the Oculus Go, if you have children, if you have a wife or other people, do you really want your Quest getting all jacked up? You want your Quest in your private man cave not getting messed up at all, right? And let your kids screw around with the Go. They drop it on the ground. Oh, that's not too bad.
Good point.
Yeah, it's so cheap though. It's like $199, so it's not a big slap in the face. Even if they didn't do anything versus what it does right now, I think it gets enough value at that price. Once YouTube comes out, everyone's gonna be going nuts. I think everyone who has a Go, because it's 80% media. Like, that's where 99% of media is. So that's gonna be a big benefit for sure. Yeah, but I don't think you're gonna be using a. Go ahead.
I was gonna say everyone can watch VR Roundtable on the Go. Crap! I forgot what I was gonna say because I delayed. Never mind. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, I was just gonna say you're not gonna be using Quest laying down in bed looking at the ceiling. Like, you're not gonna be doing that. I don't think. Maybe you are, but you can't really because of the tracking. So there's still slight use cases for the Go, but I think you're right. Like, once I get Quest, I'll probably end up giving the Go to somebody else, or passing it along family or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, that's what reminded me of what I was going to say is at $199 retail, like I'd like to say that when Quest comes out, I'm going to sell my Go, but what am I going to get for a used Go? Like if you hold out and do the best deal you can, you might sell it for $100. At $100, it might be worth keeping just so when the kids are on a road trip or something, you know, they each can have something to wear. Like I'm really probably not going to sell it now that I think about it.
Yeah, me too. Actually, when you put it in that way, I don't think I'll sell my Go either. But it does seem a little bit pointless in having both. But at the same time, you know, it's another device that can keep people entertained for a period of time. Very quickly in the chat, I just, you know, John Carmack's keynote on day 2 of OC5. Greg's VR said, I laugh when they cut Carmack off mid-stride. He could talk for hours without flagging. And that's true. It was so entertaining. Everything he says, because I follow John Carmack on Twitter and I don't really understand a lot of what he's talking about on Twitter. He puts all these quite technical things on there, and I'm not a developer or anything like that. So I struggled to follow what he's saying. But during that keynote, I followed everything perfectly. It was really, really interesting to hear him talk about VR. And it's a shame they didn't just let him carry on. But yeah, it was good either way. I'm glad they still have Carmack. It's just brings it down a little bit more to reality, I think, by having him at every single OC5. And I hope they continue to do that.
It was funny how he said he was like the exact opposite of Michael Abrash. You know, they serve these two completely different functions. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get on to a few games that we've been playing because there have been a few releases this week. The first one I want to get onto is Creed, Rise to Glory, a game by Servius, which, you know, one of the best VR developers, I think it's safe to say, and certainly one of the most consistent VR developers that are bringing out titles which are high quality, very polished and enjoyable as well. This is going for $30 and £20. And let me go over to somebody else first. Chris, did you get actually your name's not down here.
No, I did. I played everything.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Creed was interesting for me. I don't think it's worth $30. I'll say that right off the bat. It's very kind of mini game-ish. Like, you know, you train for a while, and then you do a match, and then you train and you do a match. It's kind of doing that over and over again. As from what I gathered, I played it for maybe like a half hour or so. Just because I keep punching my wall. It's not the biggest space here. So you definitely need a big space for this, I'd say, or like a really decent guardian, like close to, because you when you're punching, you're just going to punch right through the guardian. I'm sure some of you guys might have done that too. But I think it's, you know, it's very polished. You know, as you said, Servios is really good at making these polished experiences. And I think it's great that there's these kind of movie tie-ins that are more than just like a crappy 360 video or something. So in the case of that, I think that's good. But this is maybe more of a $15 game in my opinion. But it is probably the best boxing game that's been made for VR. So if you like boxing, this is definitely a must buy, I'd say.
Yeah, I suppose the other one to mention with this is Thrill of the Fight, which has been around for a long time. And I was a big fan of that, and I still am a big fan of Thrill of the Fight. I think Creed does a great job of adding some kind of depth to what Thrill of the Fight started, because you play through, really it's like kind of like the movie. If the movie was broken down to training and fights, that's really what you're playing through here. So I've played through up to the point where I guess the first movie ends. So you play, I can't remember the name of the main guy, the main opponent in the first movie, but I've beat him now. No. Sorry, no. The guy from Liverpool. What's his name? Do you actually get to fight Clubber Lang?
No, but that's what I haven't beat it yet. But
oh, okay. I was just thinking, but no. It's the guy from Liverpool in the Creed movie. The guy that he fights at the end. Pretty boy. Somebody, whatever.
Conlon,
anyway.
Ricky Conlon.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah, Ricky Conlon. So I've beat that guy, and then it carries on after that. So I've not played any more beyond that. But I guess it will go through a little bit more of what's in the second movie, maybe. Fantastic. I mean, this really, really is an enjoyable game. I want to get onto a topic just after we've all sort of given our opinions on this game about exercise in VR. But Anthony, I'll go over to you next. What did you think of this?
I think it's good. Like there's nothing that Creed does wrong, in my opinion. Like everything that is there works great. The graphics are really good. Like I think we need to say that, because like when I'm standing in that ring there and that one guy, that one really, he's kind of Clubber Lang looking almost, and he's standing right in front of you, Dwayne something, I forget what his name is. But when they had my height correct and he was standing right in front of me, I felt like I was standing in front of a giant linebacker, and it was intimidating, the space that he was occupying and like the polygons that were used to create his character model. Honestly, all of the fighters have very good character models, and then you can be all these different fighters. Like I spent a lot of time in the free mode, just kind of trying the different arenas and the different fighters. And a lot of them have tattoos and they have different muscular features or whatever. And you're in their bodies, and the inverse kinematics works pretty well. And you're looking down at your shoulders. You're like, yeah, man, I got, you're feeling pretty good about it. And everything's done well. But I'm not playing Creed that much, to be like, if I'm completely honest, I'm not playing it that much. And I would play it a hell of a lot more if it did something that NBA 2K does and something that John Madden does, where they have this story mode where it's almost like you're like a rookie that gets drafted into the NBA, or you're a college player that gets drafted into the NFL, and it's almost doing like a like a role-playing game, almost like a single-player role-playing game, and you're like at your mansion and you're talking to your promoter and your agent and stuff, and different things are going on or whatever. Someone's trying to steal things from you, or just drama is going on in the background. And if they had that as well, especially with all the Rocky trappings and everything, that would have been super cool. But I know that is a completely that is asking a hell of a lot. Maybe Creed 2 or something could have that. And then Steve was talking about Clubber Lang, and we already mentioned like Dolph Lundgren and stuff. But like if they had a DLC that had some of the classic Rocky stuff, that would be pretty cool. But I like the arenas. Like you get in some of these different arenas and you're looking out into the crowd. It looks pretty good. And when that music starts stirring up, you're fighting somebody and dun, 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 and you're like, yeah, you start to feel it. But man, I get hot and sweaty, so it's a problem.
All right, so yeah, I love that part. When you fight that the main guy from the main opponent from the first movie.
Spoil it. I was going to talk about that. We shouldn't spoil that. When everyone fights Ricky Conlon, that is the best part of the game for me. Don't spoil it, Gary. I hate to cut you off there. No. I think people deserve it.
All I was going to say very quickly is I'm amazed how when I look down at the body in when I'm in VR and I'm looking down at this body of Creed, I'm amazed they managed to map it so accurately to my actual real life body. All of these amazing muscles that are coming out.
I was just going to say, is that what a six-pack is supposed to look like? Because his belly is concave, like it goes inward. Like it doesn't look that way when I look down in real life. I think this game is awesome. Like, I love the Rocky movies. This game embodies that. From the music, it's fantastic that it's officially licensed. I don't think I would like this game as much if it wasn't a licensed, in the Rocky Creed universe. Like, if it was just generic Boxer A, generic Boxer B, and they didn't have any of the music, it would be way, way down from there. But because it has that, I feel like the Rocky movies are so good at when you're watching the last fight in the movie, like, and I know I can't be the only one, but like you get a sense of adrenaline, and you want to see Rocky, or you want to see Michael B. Jordan as Creed. You want to see them just kind of pummel everything the journey they've taken you on in the movie, and this game gets some of that. Not quite as good as the movies do, but it gets some of that feeling, especially when you're fighting Ricky Conlon, and I dig this. Like Chris, I disagree that not worth the money. It might be a generational thing. You didn't grow up in the movies in the same way that I did, but I think this is a blast. I think this is my favorite boxing game. I have the Thrill of the Fight, I have Knockout League, and I now have Creed in my library. This easily takes the cake. The only thing I will say is that if you're going to play VR, and it doesn't just apply to Creed, but if you're going to have a VR session at home and you're going to play through several games, make Creed your last one, because when you're done playing Creed, you don't want to play VR anymore. And it's because it's a workout. You get tired, you get sweaty. And I found that I played out of order. I played Creed, and it made it hard for me to jump into Transference and Vox Machinae that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So make Creed your last game of your play session.
Okay, very quickly, because we are going a little bit long here and we've still got a few games to discuss. I want to talk about the exercise aspect of VR, Creed, especially in similar games. I think Creed, because there's a lot of people when we've discussed this kind of stuff before, like VR fitness on previous shows, people have commented like, you're not going to get fit playing VR. You need to go down the gym and do all this stuff. And will Creed make you fit? It won't make you fit necessarily. It won't tone your muscles, but it will burn calories. I mean, if you're playing Creed for an hour, you will burn calories. If you're doing that rather than sitting down and watching TV for an hour, then you will have a significant amount more calories burned. So it can contribute to weight loss. And I think the best way to describe this stuff is VR exercise. It's not necessarily VR fitness. Will it make you fit? Probably not. But it will certainly burn calories. And that's the thing I want to say. So I think it's valuable in that sense anyway. Has anybody got any thoughts on this at all? And has anybody got any other games that they can think of that particularly do this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, very valuable. I've been playing Beat Saber almost every day with friends and my girlfriend. Everyone's been coming over and playing Beat Saber like every night. That game, like, you get a real, like, your arms, feel it afterwards, which is really neat because better than, I think it's more fun than being at the gym. Obviously, it's not going to be as good as going to the gym, but if you want to burn calories, like you said, like, it's a really good way to do that, and it's a lot more fun, I'd say, than just doing something without any visuals to go along with it. But man, I've been wiping off my Rift thing like every 20 minutes or something, because there's so many people going in and everyone's sweating, and it's just, there's got to be a better solution for sweat management. But it's a real it's a real thing. It's cool.
I think Box VR is head and shoulders away, and they were intending it for fitness and for a workout, because in that game they throw endurance at you. They force you. I mean, you could probably cheat it, but if you're playing fair, they force you to take a certain stance. And if you're right-handed, like when you play Creed, you probably have your right foot a little bit forward, and you put your weight, your outer shoulder. In Box VR, they make you flip stances. So mid workout, you flip to your left stance or your opposite stance, and it just works your core in a completely different way. So I think Box VR is head and shoulders above everybody else. Creed, I would put in the same league as Knockout League. When I play either of them, it's because I'm mobile, I'm ducking, I'm swinging my arms, I'm punching, and I'm actually trying to punch fast and hard, even though hard doesn't matter in VR. You're not really hitting anything. It's just kind of an element of getting into it. And then Beat Saber, and this gives me a chance, I'm glad you brought it up, Chris, it gives me a chance to correct something from last week. So I had said last week that Beat Saber to hit hard, to swing harder, and it was better for scoring. I think that was a coincidental side effect of swinging harder, but to get better scores, you actually are supposed to cut straight through the entire block rather than just kind of smack the block like I was, cut through. So by me playing swinging harder and faster, I was truly achieving what the scoring mechanism, what it truly works off of. But that game, when you actually try swinging hard, it wears you out, especially playing on expert. So Beat Saber can be either or. Like if you just do the fling your wrist around kind of thing, you can do well, you can hit notes, and you won't break a sweat. But if you actually try slicing, that game is a good workout as well.
Anthony, anything to add on that?
Well, one thing I'll say is you do get a lot of that in Reddit, where people are like, no, you can't really get a workout in VR, blah, blah, blah. I completely disagree with that. I think if you're moving around, if you are sweating and moving around, that's good. It's good regardless, period. In fact, I believe last week on the Today Show, like on NBC, they had a quick little segment where some study was done that said if you exercise for 13 minutes, it can be as good as exercising for like an hour or whatever. Like they did some kind of major study about that. And so I believe all of this helps. There was a time where I actually had an exercise routine in VR, and I would play Cyberpong, I would play Hollow Ball, I'd play Racket NX. I had like some specific games that I would go through and do this like 45-minute exercise routine every day. And sure, it's light exercise, but it's exercise. The other thing is, when you think about the Oculus Quest, right, and being, having that freedom and all that, I kind of want, do you guys remember back in the days where the Sony Walkman, there was like a yellow version of the Sony Walkman. It was like the sports version, and like it could get wet and all this stuff. I mean, this is like for old people, but because this is really old, but what we need is the sports version of like the Quest, the sports version of the Rift that's been designed. It's specifically designed for people that want to exercise the hell out of it. And maybe it has these little like face inserts that snap on and you get like 10 of them, and so you give some, because the worst thing in the world, there is nothing worse than this, grabbing your headset and putting it on and it's all wet and moist with someone else's sweat. Oh my God, is that the worst ever? So we need a solution for that.
Yeah, just to finish off on this point, I think it's safe to say, look, the point is with VR, are you going to get ripped playing Creed? No, of course you're not going to. But will it burn calories? And that's the point. You've got to have your expectations in the right place. So I think playing Creed will absolutely burn significantly more calories than if you're sitting down playing a game on a sofa. So that's the point to take away from this.
Hey, wait, one last second. Is anybody else surprised that there isn't a weightlifting app for VR where you actually get, weights in your hand and it's tracking your arm and it tells you, oh, you're not bending your arm right, I'm surprised we don't have that.
They can't get inverse kinematics right. There's no way they're going to tell me my form on a curl is right. And nor do I want to lift a heavy weight while being effectively blinded from the real world and that weight. It's just asking to get strangled on a bell bar.
Okay, let's get on to the next game, which I think I think we've all played this actually, Vox Machinae. So this was the announcement for the release was announced at OC5 as well. So this was sort of like a stealth release by the developer Space Bullet. It's for $25. So I've played a little bit of this. I'll go first actually. So I went in the couple of days ago, played through the training section, really enjoyed that, and then I went into a multiplayer match last night. I went into two multiplayer matches actually, and for anybody, I talk about this all the time, I don't want to bang on about it, but anybody who hasn't seen the show before, I'm not a multiplayer guy. I don't really enjoy too much multiplayer games, but I've got to say, there's certain things that this game is doing particularly right to entice me in, and those two multiplayer matches that I played through were very, very enjoyable. This game is actually it's rapidly becoming a game which might appear on my list for the end of the year show, which we usually do for the top VR games of the year. There's something that this game is doing right. It's very, very polished. You have this radio that you can talk to people if you choose to do so. And I think that's an important aspect of this game, as why I like it. Because you can actually play, even in the multiplayer match, you can sort of play through this game in almost like a single player kind of scenario. You know the objectives, you know what you're supposed to do, and you can sort of get on with it. But if you choose to, you can just pick up this radio, communicate with your the other players on your team, and get a little bit more out of it. And I found myself doing that increasingly the more I've played this. There's something about this, and I don't know what it is specifically, but there's something about this that really makes me want to play multiplayer. The training's great, the polish is great, the graphics are incredible. The only negative thing I'd say is probably to do with the environments. Now, the environments look fantastic. The graphics are incredible, but whenever you play one of these mech games where you are sort of controlling this mech kind of machine, you're always in this kind of desert, sort of very, very sparse environment, I find. And this doesn't do anything different beyond that. That's the only negative thing I can point towards it. The controls are great. The controls are intuitive. The gameplay is just fantastic. I really, really do enjoy this game. What does everybody else think? Steve, let me go to you first.
No, I agree. This was really impressive. It's one of the only games I think that I played, and I haven't done a lot of the aircraft simulator stuff, but it's one of the only games that I played where you take your hand presence and then you're manipulating the cockpit controls directly. And, Elite Dangerous, for example, I use my HOTAS when I play that, and there is no hand presence. Eve Valkyrie, no hand presence. This game, there's hand presence, and you are grabbing... I take that back. Titanic VR kind of did something similar where you could manipulate the joystick and such, but for more of a cockpit-based game, Titanic VR wasn't that. In manipulating these controls, and actually it gives you a sense of immersion that isn't there in a game like is it Archangel? Yeah. And I thought once you kind of get used to the controls and get the hang of it, I almost was blindly. I didn't even have to look down and grab the turning joystick. Like I got a little bit of awareness and can do things. So it's a little bit of a learning curve with it in that regard. It's okay because you go through the tutorial. The only thing I don't like about the game, and maybe I just need to get in some different matches, but I played through the tutorial and I played I think 5 online matches. So I may be the one of us that's played this the most, and there wasn't a ton of communication. I played both the deathmatch mode and the I forget what they call it, but you're supposed to. It's basically like capture the flag or control points, where you're trying to your team's trying to take control of certain points on the map. But like you said, Gary, because the maps are barren, it was difficult for me to get my bearing. Where when I would die and relaunch, like how do I get back to that control point I was trying to get to? Like there was just nothing that gave me good scenic direction. But then there was things were slower, and I think that's the point of a mech game. The walking slow. It was like this and last week's game Transference, like they were competing to who could be the slowest walking game. And I get that it's a mech. It's supposed to be slow, but there were times where I just want to go faster. I just want to go faster. And I know that's why they give you that jet boost and all that. So that may be, though, and I don't want to say that's a fault of the game, because that may be me. I may be going into this trying to play it like it's a Call of Duty game or something where I just want to get back to the action quickly over and over and over. But if you take your time and play it and think of what it's like if you were truly in some giant exosuit and shooting at other people, slower is probably more appropriate and more realistic and more immersive. And I think this is a fantastic game. It's really well done. Plays great, looks great, minus the barren maps, and definitely recommended.
Just before I go to Anthony on this, the other thing I want to mention, I think that the combination of using that jet boost kind of jump thing and with the walking is actually quite an interesting part of this game, because I agree, I think certain parts you do feel like you're moving too slowly. So it's sort of managing that jet boost in a way where you don't run out of it, and yet you can progress through the map a reasonable speed. And I actually really enjoyed that part of it. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, back to what Steve was saying real quick too about the walking speed. I had a lot of, like, if there was one problem I had with this game, it was that I felt like certain times I felt like I was stuck in molasses, and I'm using those jump jets, and it doesn't seem like I'm going anywhere. And that's a bit of an issue. But you know what I finally learned, I believe, is you got to pay attention to the terrain that you're on. And you pay attention to the terrain, and like if you're not on a level terrain, you're going to move way slower than when you're on level flat ground. So you kind of have to look down every once in a while and pay attention to where you're headed, which adds a little bit more realism. But the one thing I'll say about Vox Machinae, this is the last game I needed this month, okay? I've got so many great games to play right now. I did not need another great game, but that's what this is. This came out of nowhere. I am not a multiplayer guy in the least, and I find myself drawn to play this. I played it again last night, and it's just the cockpit is done so well. All your indicators are done so well. Everything just comes together in such a nice way. I mean, this game is right there with Windlands 2 and Transference as the best game of September, and that is freaking great company to be included with, in my opinion. This is like a top 50 best VR game, period. That's how good Vox Machinae is from what I've been able to tell of it. I kind of wish there was a little bit of a single player mode though, where I could kind of just go a little bit more slowly through the game and like maybe do some objectives and stuff and just explore these environments. And some of the environments, like from a graphical standpoint, like what they're showing right here, where it kind of looks like Mars, like that one was done really well. But there's some other environments where you're on like these alien worlds where it's like bubbling lava and it's kind of like all smoke through the air and kind of weird. And sometimes it can be hard to see stuff. Now I'm on a 970, so I don't know, maybe you guys that are super sampling and all that, maybe it looks a little bit better for you. But the bottom line here, this is one of the best VR games we've gotten in quite some time, especially if you're a multiplayer guy. And if you've always been wanting like a mech assault, mech warrior type game, this is your dream come true for now. This is the best we've seen so far, easily.
Yeah, we don't.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying we don't. A lot of the times we don't want to be up and do punching like Creed or playing Beat Saber. We want to be sitting down in a mech and like. Finally, there's a game where you can do that. Like there really hasn't been any mech games that have been decent ever, and it's always been such a no-brainer. Like you're like this makes perfect sense. It's great because you have your hand presence. You know, like you were saying, Anthony. Like I'm pulling up the radar over here. I'm like, okay, that's where that objective is, and then I love the radio. It's so neat. Also, I keep honking the horn randomly. It's fun. The horn is great. I kept using it every time I like killed something. I was just like, yeah. But I just have a blast in this thing. It feels very real to be in a cockpit and that you're directly controlling it. And I mean, I think Anthony summed it up very, very well. Like it's very fun. I just really wish there was a story mode or something. If this had a story, it'd be a whole nother level. I'd pay like double what it is now or something. But I think it's a reasonable price for what you're getting. I'm just hoping enough people buy it so the multiplayer, there's always people online, which it looks like so far there has been. So
yeah. So how do you? So I like some of the shooter games, this has always kind of been a thing that I dislike, and I've always gravitated towards the quick time to kill games. The Call of Duty, SOCOM was my jam back then. Firewall, like. I don't necessarily like an online game where you just shoot, and you can't seem to take someone down, but yet they're able to seemingly take you down in half the hits. And this game does something similar. I feel like I'm just waylaying missiles into another mech, and I'm shooting them in their back, and I'm hitting them with my laser and my missiles, and I'm giving them everything I can, and then it seems like they turn around and take me out. And a third of the time I've spent laying into them. And does it matter where you're shooting the mech? Like I typically aim for the center mass, I guess. It's not really a headshot on a mech as far as I know. So do you guys notice that? Do you all feel that way that sometimes you just feel like you're putting a lot of ammo into another player and you can't just get them down?
Yeah, there is an aspect of that, and I don't know the sort of the subtleties of how they're sort of distributing all the damage that you do to it. Maybe you're right, Steve. Maybe you need to get it in certain spots, but there is this thing, this game, and I think somebody mentioned it in the chat about how you lose your limbs. So as you progress through the game and you're battling your enemies, your leg can fall off or your arm can get blown off and then you can't use that weapon. It makes for a really interesting game. In fact, a lot of the time, because one of my legs got blown off, a lot of the time I was utilizing that jump, the boost jump kind of thing, for most of the match, because you just couldn't progress if I didn't have both my legs. It just wouldn't walk forward. And I really like that idea of this game. It's just fantastic. Yeah, really, really enjoying it.
In the tutorial, it tells you when you're firing your missiles, don't fire the missiles directly at the mech. You want to fire it like you have to imagine where is that mech going to be in 2 seconds and fire your missiles there, kind of.
Yeah. I got that. Like, I'm getting direct hits, but Apache Entertainment is in chat and said go for the arms and legs, and maybe that's what I'll focus more on, like with my laser going for the arms and legs. Just thought I'd bring it up because that was, I guess, it's all part of the learning curve, right? Like a game like this, you got to learn it, and you got to learn. You jump in, you get the base controls, you can shoot at other mechs, but there's another layer of depth to it, and it's the part where you go from learning basic controls to getting good, and that's the part I'm at. I got to learn now how to get good.
Yeah. Hey, can you guys imagine if you could go to a VR arcade and they had this game, but you're like in a D-Box motion simulator, and there's no controllers. They have the cockpit, like you actually grab the things, and it has it has leap motion hand tracking, so your hands are in the game, and you're like pulling your jump cord, and it's D-Box. Oh my God, I would spend hours there.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Okay, a couple of other games to touch on. So, Steve, let's go over to you first, because you weren't here last week about the Transference. Sorry, you were here, but you hadn't played Transference. Why don't you tell us?
Well, I wasn't sure we were going to talk about it. We've been running pretty late, but I just kind of want to add, I came home for everyone watching the show and watched last week. I didn't get to play it because I was out of town. I came home late Friday night, and I've already beat Transference. That's how much I like the game, and it's also how relatively short that it is. And I think we might get to this as we wrap up the show, but when I think about all these games of September, Vox, Creed, Windlands, Transference, it's all pretty like tight-knit group of quality games, and Transference is very much my speed. Everyone knows last year I mentioned Resident Evil every episode. Like, these type of creepy atmospheric games that do well with audio, that do well with video, that just kind of do well with the whole setting, the feeling, the ambiance. That's really my cup of tea, and Transference did that. I thought Transference was fantastic. I love the sound. Like, I don't think I heard enough people talk about the sound, but when things are glitching out, and as you're just walking down a hallway and you're hearing the kid say something just like gut wrenching that you would never want to hear your own children say, or you hear the wife, or you read the letters and the pain that they're going through. Like, this game, in ways I don't feel like it's gotten enough credit. I get the critique. I get why, it's short and it's $25. I think it's $25. And all that. It's all perfectly valid. You're not going to get a lot of mileage. You're not going to be playing Transference for months and months and months. But when you look at quality per hour, like, I just loved it. And, I'm not going to talk too much about it, and you guys can jump in if you want, but, just kind of wanted to give my take out there. It gets the recommend from me because, low on hours, but those hours were very high quality.
One quick thing I'll say about it is, like, when you watch a Black Mirror episode, and you just watch one episode of Black Mirror, right? And then for the next several days, you're like thinking about that like at different times of the day, you're thinking about that episode. You're like, man, they did it. That's what Transference is for me. They did it so well. I think about that game. It's like, people don't, I feel bad for SpectreVision. I really do. I hope they're getting enough sales from this. I hope this is a successful thing. See, my biggest worry is there's a lot of people, they just don't want horror, that they just can't deal with the terror and the horror. They get in there, that there's one scare thing that happens that is really intense and scares the crap out of them, and they're like, I'm out. I can't do this. And that sucks, because goddamn, people need to play Transference. It is, I'm telling you, Windlands 2, Transference, Vox Machinae, these are elite must-play games, in my opinion.
I agree. And actually, Transference, it's not like to me, it's not like crazy scary or anything like that. I think there's tension to it, but it's not like to the point where you can't progress through the game or anything like that. There are experiences like that. I think Resident Evil 7. I also think A Chair in a Room, which is one of my favorite VR horror games, is far more. I mean, that's on another level than Transference. Transference is not really a scary game to me at the point where I am. Maybe Steve disagrees. But yeah, I think to me it's not impacted me in the same way that A Chair in a Room did anyway. But yeah. Okay, well, we've got one more thing to talk about this week, and that is Space Junkies. So there was another beta this past week. I didn't play it, unfortunately, but I think Steve and Chris did, and maybe Anthony, did you play it too? Okay, so why don't you go ahead? Chris, let's go over to you first on this.
All right, so I didn't play the previous beta. I don't know. I think you guys did, right?
Yep.
I did,
okay.
Yeah.
Everybody but Anthony. He was anti-Uplay in those days.
So yeah, pro Uplay now. Pro Uplay Anthony is here. No. But this was my first time going into Space Junkies, and I was pretty impressed with just the feeling. Everything feels so good. Like you're shooting, every gun has like a unique thing to it, or there's like a slingshot. Everything has just a really nice tactile feel to it, and I was very impressed by that. I also loved the environments in this. Like this is, probably the closest thing we have to like a good FPS that people can play. Obviously, it's more fantasy and space and everything, but in terms of just like the feeling of everything and the fantasy of it, I love this. So I was, playing a few matches, and I sucked a little bit, but I started getting better, and I had the shotgun. I just kept one pumping everybody, and it's just a lot of fun. Like the controls, once you get the hang of them, they're really nice. So I didn't play it long enough to give final conclusions on it or anything like that. But I mean, once this releases, I think this is going to be a big thing, probably bigger than Echo Combat, just because Echo Combat seems kind of limited in the maps and everything. But these maps are really neat, and everything, it feels like polished to 10. So I'll let Steve or someone else talk about it because they played more of it.
Well, we covered it well last time, and I'm sure we'll cover it again whenever it comes to final release. It's to me, this and Echo Combat, or like, what's going on? These games seem pretty well done and well polished. Like, why aren't they out? What are they waiting on? But anyways, with Space Junkies, in this beta, we got different levels, and we got a new game mode, this King mode. And it's what I'm showing now is me totally owning in this King mode match. This is just a good game. Like it feels good. It plays well enough. It's colorful. It's pretty. The shooting is fun. It's online multiplayer without being, too much. You don't really have to talk and communicate. You can just kind of get in there and do your thing. And there's really not anything to hate about this game. One thing sticks out there, and the success of this game, in my opinion, will be based on its price. If it is $39.99, $49.99, something like that, then I think it's DOA. If it's $19.99 or $25, I think it can be a game that people enjoy and has a extended community. If they don't keep doing these betas, like they're treading into territory of giving the house away, in that I may be done with Space Junkies and had my fill on the mill before it ever comes out in full release. And same thing for Echo Combat. Quit doing these betas and get the dang game out, because there's not much reason to pick the game up if you've already put 12 hours into it pre-release.
Anthony, what do you think?
I was just going to say, Echo Combat has been dated for November 15th at $10, which that is kind of a little bit of an issue for Ubisoft here, because they are so similar. But Space Junkies is more Unreal Tournament. So this level that's showing on the screen, where it's like an underwater coral world almost that you're in, every time I play this game, this is the level I'm in over and over and over again. I've never seen a different level, and it's because whenever I get in there, everybody votes for this level. Has anybody else noticed that? Is it just me? But it's a good game. I mean, I like it. I get owned, though. But the one thing I do like about it is see all those little power-ups that you can run through, like the little armor power-ups and the health power-ups. Like I go for all of that stuff and I get the shotgun and I've killed a few people here and there, but I'm just not very good, but it's fun. It's definitely fun.
Okay. Well, I guess that's pretty much it for this week. One thing I just wanted to quickly mention, and it's something that I put on Twitter last night. We over here in the UK, I feel like we're a little bit deprived in terms of like VR meetups and stuff like that. So I just wanted to put it out there. If anybody wants to sort of get together and maybe start some kind of VR meetup over here in the UK, I'm thinking like Birmingham, maybe sort of the middle of the country, and we can maybe all get together there just for like a night or a couple of nights where we can get together, play some VR games and have a chat about VR, because looking at all the stuff in OC5, I've got no chance of going to OC6 really, so I'm a little bit jealous and I'd like to talk to like-minded people over here in the UK. So if anybody wants to contact me, my email is reckonervr@gmail.com, or follow me on Twitter at reckonervr, and we'll see if we can get something organized. I didn't announce this before, so I hope everyone's okay with me announcing that. But yeah, I've not really got any plans about it, so we'll see where it goes. But hopefully we can get something organized.
You might get better traction bringing up at the beginning of a show. It's at this point, true. Everybody hits the stop button and moves on with their life.
That's a good point, yeah. But yeah, has anybody got anything else they want to bring up before we finish the show off?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thanks to everybody who has joined us in chat for this episode, and we'll see you next week for episode 99, believe it or not, of VR Roundtable. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Take it easy.